Hi, everyone. Yes,
Hi.
look who is back. We have Don Daniels back with us today, and I'm super excited, as I know you all are. Um, Let me go ahead and kind of get set in here, but uh, while everybody comes on in, um, everybody's being alerted now that we're live, so we'll have people popping in. But anyways, Don, it's so good to see you, and I'm super excited you're back with us because inquiring minds want to know. Like we have so many questions, and so those of you who are just popping in, please go ahead and pop your questions. If you have any questions for Don, I know, and I know you do because you've been telling me. So
And a
please,
bunch of them got my book, and so I'm sure they've got questions from that.
right. But we'll wait a second while everybody pops in. I was a
Okay.
little late in getting it posted. I'm just returning from my brother's house. And so had to all get reset up. And so I didn't have a chance to get on top of it like I normally do. Hi, Mashika. Hi, Jeanette, Earth Mama. Good to see you guys. Welcome, welcome. And this is also not our normal time. So usually we'll be, when Dawn comes on, we will be doing it on a Wednesday on our normal Inquiring Minds time. So this also is kind of an odd time that we're coming on. So, because they're used to my Wednesdays. So,
But
yeah,
they can catch it on the replay too.
absolutely. And they will. All right. So, have any new news of since the last time we talked to you? Have you noticed? Have you had any other experiences in the last couple months that is new, or anything new happening with you?
Oh, not so much with me. There's the controlled drip, drip, drip of control disclosure.
Uh huh.
A little tidbit here, and people get all excited, and it's like I've known that for years. Come on, just get on with it. Just throw it out there. Come on.
See, and that's what's so awesome is that you can people can come to you and you can verify for them. You can back them up. Go, yes, that is
Yeah.
a thing, and that's
Earth Mama says Congress is starting to learn more. When we did a briefing for them back in 2012, they were so clueless. It was just astounding.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And then it was also like the cosmic hot potato where, uh, well, Governor, or not Governor, Senator, oh, they called him Senator Moonbeam. They were discrediting him. One of the guys who wanted to hold congressional hearings, and he got totally trashed. And then he got a weird cancer and died, unfortunately. I'm
hmm.
trying to remember his name, but so a lot of the other senators and Congress critters did not want to uh, even get involved with the subject because they didn't want to wind up like him.
Oh wow. Um, so why now is the Congress stepping in and opening up to this now? Do you think?
Well, I think there's so much public pressure. They did a little very superficial hour and a half public briefing or meeting, and then they went behind closed doors, and who knows what happened there. But uh, so far, most people aren't too impressed with what's come out publicly.
Okay. How about those of you who are behind the scenes who know a lot and like that? What are your hopes for this information coming out?
Well, I don't think they're going to land on the White House lawn and say, "Take me to your leader." Uh, this leader better than the last, but uh,
Yeah.
uh, I think they're doing contact with uh, open-minded citizens building a base of understanding, and then we'll kind of be the interface with the rest of the public as they become more visible, more in our face, to where it becomes pretty much undeniable.
And do you feel like there's a time?
Well, Debbie, you know that time in the higher dimensions is nonlinear. Like I
True.
said last time, it's event driven. This event plus this event triggers this event. So it'll happen when the events fall into line.
Oh, yes.
Can't put a calendar date on it.
Yeah. Okay. So you just answered that question. Hey, Bonds. Hi, Melinda. So I wanted to talk about, there was one subject that we were talking, I think it was brought up the last time we were together, and it was about fossil fuels and that whole subject.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. That's one of the major reasons that for all the secrecy is that they don't go running around the universe burning jet fuel. If we had their energy and propulsion systems, we would not need fossil fuels. And all of these people who have invested in all the oil fields and stuff would be out their profits, which they're getting at the expense of our planet. But there's a really good documentary, if you can find it. It's called The John Searle Story.
The John
Searle, Searl, I believe it is.
Searl. Okay.
He was a British guy, kind of a savant, orphan, and they, at a very young age, they put him to work in this motor works that were rewinding electric motors and stuff. And he learned a lot about magnetism and stuff. And he developed a generator with, it had these floating hockey puck type things with like three different materials, a core, a ring of some rare earth, and another ring around the outside and stuff. And these would free float in kind of guides and spin. And once you get it going, it just kept going and going and going and generated electricity. And so he got these things, got one of them going and decided to see how much load it would produce. And he turned on a fan and a light bulb and an iron and stuff. And when he got to a certain amount, this thing lifted off and shot right through the roof and out, gone forever. It created anti-gravity.
Oh.
And so then he started working on it some more, trying to figure out how to control it. Eventually figured out how to control it, and he built a disc. First, he started with like 3-foot disc and chained him to the ground, and before he learned how to really control it. And this thing would break the chain or cable, 3,000-pound tensile strength cable, and off into space. And he finally learned how to control this thing. And he built a larger, like 30-foot or something disc with, and this was back 30, 40 years ago. It was like vacuum tube radios and telephone relays, pretty primitive as far as the controls. But he had a network of ham radio operators around the planet, and they would send, they'd check the signal and the position and send minor course corrections. And he would fly this thing around the Earth, and in very, very high speed. He figured he was going to build one that would carry people, and they could do day trips to the moon. It would take about an hour to get to the moon, about a half an hour to get out of the atmosphere, and a half hour to get the rest of the way, have a picnic up there with the Earth in the background, and then come back. And of course, he got shut down.
Okay. So
they raided his place because they figured he was stealing electricity because he wasn't paying anything, when nothing was coming in his meter, but the lights were on. So they figured obviously he was stealing electricity. And they raided him and took it all away and destroyed all his papers and destroyed him.
So what happens where does this knowledge go then? So here's the person utilizing this. What's the purpose of trying to crush it and keep it contained?
Well, again, if we had free energy, we wouldn't be slave to the utilities paying for our energy by the kilowatt hour, the BTU, or the gallon. And Melinda wants to know what's John Searle, Searl, I believe it is. The John Searle story was the documentary. I've got the DVD.
Okay. So you feel it's really connected in with just money and
Greed.
Slave to that.
The whole fossil fuel industry has been squashing these for 50, 60 years at least. We haven't needed fossil fuels for probably since the 30s or 40s.
Do you feel that, from what you're hearing, that this is going to shift soon?
Well, it's got to. I mean, our planet is kind of a jewel in the galaxy. It's got some of the best biodiversity out there. We're actually a botanical garden. They brought a lot of stuff in from different worlds, and they're not going to allow us to destroy the planet. So we got to get our act together. If we don't, there may be an intervention.
Okay.
And that intervention could include providing the energy systems that we already have, but they're just buried by the corporate powers. But they may find ways to get that out into the public so that we can start using them and get off of the fossil fuels. Yeah, Tesla had it almost 100 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how do you know of any type of group of people that are kind of screaming about this? Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, I've got a 500-page book or something that shoot, who was that? He's down in Huntsville. I can't remember his name right now. But there's a number of people that are working on it and have written books about the different ways. There's 20 or 30 different ways to extract energy from the environment, from the vacuum of quantum vacuum of space. They say there's more energy in a teacup than would boil Lake Michigan or something. We just have to figure out. We're just swimming in it. It's like a fish in the ocean. You don't realize it's all around you because you're in it.
Yeah.
I just need to extract it.
I do feel that they can't hide anymore because we're coming into an age of information, and everybody has the information now. So I just feel it's going to be harder and harder for them to hide and do the things they've done thus far to keep everything squashed down.
The hard part now is to distinguish yourself from all the conspiracy theories and spoof stuff that people put out just to see if they can own somebody by getting them to believe something that's crazy, like the flat earth stuff or whatever.
Bonds also says after Tesla died, the government scooped up his numerous trunks of boo. So hypnosis and welcome everyone. Welcome those who have popped in. I know it looks like it took a while for it to notify people that we were live. So welcome. And if you have questions for Dawn, please throw them in, ET questions or that sort of thing. Please pop them in. And but welcome, Dawn. And so we're moving on here. Once in a while, I have a shadow of monolithic structure outside my bedroom window. I see it through my blinds, but it's gone when I pull the shade up. Is it a door of some sort, or?
My impression is that it might be a portal. If she goes outside and walks in that area, does anything strange happen? Do you feel any kind of a shift? Uh,
That's a
I've got
good.
a I've got a friend who's a crop circle researcher, and he was over in England in a crop circle, and he ran out of film, and so he headed back to his car to get some more film. And as he walked, the field got more and more unkempt and more weeds and stuff. And then he heard some people talking in old Chaucerian, Chaucer type English. And he looks around and here's these guys around a campfire, in the old clothes and everything. And he thought, do I approach them in my modern clothes and cameras and everything, or will they think I'm some kind of a sorcerer or something? And so he went back to the center of the circle and, hey, to his friend, hey, come here, you got to see this. And as they walked back, like 5 minutes later, he was back at the car. Oh, and he thought he'd been gone for an hour or so. And when he got back to the center of the circle, his friend said, no, you've only been gone like 5 minutes or so. So
Wow.
he went through a little bit of a time portal.
Yeah, he did.
And
How
there's
interesting.
cases down in South America, Peru, I think it was, where a military group was investigating something that was going on up on this mountain. And one of the leaders walked through the portal and disappeared. And just within minutes, he came back out, but he had like a week's growth of beard. And he was telling a story about all the stuff he'd experienced while he was gone that, took like a week. But he popped back out just minutes after he went in, but he had full growth of beard
so
and stuff. So,
weird.
yeah, it's a far, far stranger universe than you or I can imagine. It sure is fun
Oh,
trying
but
to
I
figure it
love
out.
it. It's just I love opening my mind. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. She says, I have pictures. I haven't tried walking outside, but if I pull the shade up, it's still there. I'll try walking outside next time. Well, okay.
Just be open for whatever high strangeness. We enjoy the high strangeness. It's like, well, there's another one. What can we learn from that one?
Yes. Wow. Okay, so another little question I have for you. And again, if you guys have questions, please throw them up. I know you do because you've reached out to me with the questions. So, hi, Starseed Awakening. Karen is here. So, when you have so many flight hours in the air, a billion.
Yeah,
I'm really aging you up. You have
closing in on 30,000 hours.
30,000 hours. Have you had any experiences while you've been up there?
A few, mostly from the ground, though. Partially when you're responsible for the airplane and the passengers and stuff, it's a little harder to get into that state of consciousness where you can reach out and connect.
Okay, so but nothing like physical, because we hear these stories of pilots flying and they see, strange things.
No, I was flying west over the Rockies one night, and I saw these flashes off in the out, in the western sky. But uh, I called them flash bulb effect. They were more like the old flash bulbs that were a little longer duration, a little yellower than the strobe light
Yes.
flashes. And they were about the size, a round head pin at arm's length. And it wasn't a real pinpoint, it was kind of an area. Nobody knew what they really were. And I'd been seeing them for a while. And normally, when you see one, you'll see several. And we're flying along, and the co pilot's eyes got a little big, and I saw the flash. And I said, "You saw that too, didn't you?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, keep watching because normally there'll be several in a row." And sure enough, there were. But
Wow.
Don't know what those were. My most recent sighting was last fall. We were up on Squaw Pass up near Echo Lake, and out to the south, and it was real smoky there with all the forest fires, so you could only see the brightest stars. But there was a whole cluster of really bright stars down in the southern sky near where Scorpio be. And I'm looking at that going, I don't remember that many bright stars that close together. And then all of a sudden they just started winking out. I'm going, okay, you're just saying hi.
I would
Just seeing
think,
if I was paying attention.
but I would think they would. I would think that they would um, do some more showing up for you because they know that you're so connected with them.
Yeah, but some of that is just asking for validation or
Oh, okay.
verification.
And
And
you're already validated with them.
oh
So
yeah, I
okay.
mean, I already know. So
Okay,
uh,
good.
some of it they may show up for others in the group who are newer to give them more validation. But uh, I've had the people who are living among us reveal themselves and become friends. So
Right. And
that's a little bit.
I do want to hear more about that too, because that is just fascinating to me. And, we have an idea that this is really happening, but for you to actually have connected and befriended and yeah, just
Somebody asked if I knew Linda Moulton Howe. Yeah, I've met her several times at some of the conferences and hearings and stuff.
cool. Linda.
Linda Moulton Howe.
Okay.
She was more into some of the cattle mutilation and stuff, and I think
Oh,
those were almost exclusively downwind of the atomic tests, and whether it was extraterrestrials or whether it was covert. Uh,
yeah.
they were taking the thyroid glands and stuff. I think they were testing to see how much radiation was making it into the uh, system there.
Okay. Okay. Linda says, I think ETs will be there will just be there amongst humans, next to us in grocery stores, next to us on public transport, in theaters,
Oh,
etc.
yeah.
Just be there, no big announcement. They'll just kind of, well, they're, I guess, Linda, it's already happened.
Oh, yeah. There's the anthropologist among us all over the place. The numbers have dropped off. Like I said in the last program, 2012, there were about 1 million off planet beings living among us. And 2013 was when they were really cleaning up the grays and stuff. And there were about 2 million, according to Tashina. And then she says, once they got that done, we're down to about, just tens or 20,000 range. Just kind of an observation core.
Oh, so once whatever is completed, then they don't need such a big presence to
Well,
walk.
they cleaned up the grays that were not abiding by the prime directive and kicked them off the planet. And so now it's up to us to clean up the rest of our mess.
Gotcha.
It's our mess. This part is our mess.
Is there any other because have you ever seen any of those shows that you see odd little beings walking in the in the people's cameras, door cameras, and have you seen any of
Oh,
those?
yeah.
So what's that? What's going on with that? Is that real,
It's hard to tell. There's so many people putting out spoofed Photoshop videos just to see if they can get people to believe it. Um, some may be real, some may be spoofs. I have no idea.
Okay.
You'd have to get some photo analyst expert to look at the metadata and see whether it's been doctored and stuff.
Because some of them are like,
But on the movies, the ones that are trying to scare us, it's usually insectoids or reptilians or something that we have a visceral reaction to.
And do you feel like we do still have like reptilians and those type any other types of ETs among us that are kind of hidden within?
Well, the last I talked to Tashina, she said they were in the process of cleaning up the last of the reptilians, but
Oh, okay. So still a little bit of that.
there may still be a few, but they're pretty deep underground and kind of contained.
All right. And did they just didn't want them here because they weren't on the same page of what they were wanting to do with Earth?
Well, again, they were interfering in our development rather than letting us
Oh,
do our own thing. Somebody said orbs are big now. Have you
popular.
got my picture of the big orb?
Yes.
Can you show that?
Yes. Go ahead and okay. So let's go to the next question, and I'm going to figure out how I can get that orb picture up so everybody can see it really clearly. Because if I just show you on my phone, it's boo. Okay. I'd like to hear more about CE5 contact. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, CE5, close encounters of the fifth kind. That's
Oh, see me,
where
I'm
we
not telling you guys.
initiate contact. We put out our intention in various ways. We can use lights, we can use radio signals, we can use primary one is consciousness. And the shirt here, let me get through it. Yeah. See, SETI, can't, I'm going backwards.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. See,
One universe, one people. I really like the message. Unfortunately, they kind of, the director kind of drifted into hyper ego, but I still like the message. But yeah, CE5 is a close encounter that you initiated, that you not just a passive. Oh, I see something. It's like we invite them and we have an encounter.
So in hearing more bonds, did you have a specific question within this, or? Okay, so I'm still pulling up the picture here.
Okay.
I have to, oh, there we go.
So let's see, we talked about my close encounter of the crustacean kind on the last show, but that was consciousness. We were reaching out remote view, and in that case, it was second time of the night. It was like 1 a.m. I was tired, and I just instead of doing the full meditation, remote view, etc., I just kind of settled into that silence between the breaths and said, "Come on down and play, or beam me up," and they instantly beamed me up. And it was a out of body spontaneous launch because I could feel them touching me. So consciousness is the big thing. It's the most important. If you put out the intention that you want to meet them and include in that you only wish to work with those who are here in the best interest of humanity and the planet, then it's like a searchlight. It's like a beacon. They see that consciousness and they'll home in on it. Still trying to get the picture up.
I am, but
That's okay.
Because you have to save it like a certain way and to show on here. It's just weird. Okay, copy, save as, and we want to save it as a PNG.
Yeah, Shockwave. Japan is planning to dump the treated radioactive water in the ocean. They're just running out of storage space for it over there at Fukushima, or Fukushima as they pronounce it. And already there was a lot of it showing up and bioconcentrating in the fish in the ocean. So what's it going to do for the fisheries? Is it going to be safe to eat the fish from the Pacific Ocean?
Oh.
I mean, years ago, I've got a Geiger counter, and this guy pulled up in front of the house, with the pickup with the little freezer in the back, and says, "Hey, you want to buy some steaks or seafood?" And I said, "Oh, you got a variety pack on the seafood?" And he said, "Well, I'll bring you up some different ones." And he brought up a bunch, and the Alaska salmon and cod, especially the cod, were definitely above background level on the radiation. The Atlantic salmon was fine. Very unscientific test, but my Geiger counter was picking up extra radiation in the, I think it was cod, might have been halibut from Alaska. Seemed to be a higher than normal background radiation level.
And they're talking about dumping radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean, Japan. How do they ever think that's okay? Don't they?
Well, I think it's going to dilute, but it bioconcentrates up the food chain. They also, in the Pacific Northwest, shortly after Fukushima, the radiation levels in the milk were going above the FDA allowable standards. So they just quietly increased the standards by an order of magnitude, made it 10 times higher, was okay. And they also, there used to be civil defense websites that had all the radiation monitors around the countries and the different cities and stuff. You could go online and check the radiation levels, at any site you wanted to. Right after Fukushima, they took that site down due to lack of interest. Yeah. No, it was falling on the pastures in Oregon and Washington, Idaho, in the Northwest, and the cows were eating it. It was getting into the milk, and they had to cover it up somehow.
BMP, let's try that. Do you see the question up on the screen there?
Which one?
By Sandy Miller. Have you ever flown? It's right on our screen.
Oh.
Have you ever flown through the triangle in Alaska that is supposed to be like the Devil's Triangle?
Probably. We used to fly, going to Japan, we'd usually go over like Fairbanks and Nome and on out into the Pacific, down off the Kamchatka Peninsula and into Japan. Going to China, we usually went polar, right over the North Pole, pretty close, and down through Siberia and Mongolia into China. I don't know if they're doing that right now. Well, for one, China's kind of locked down, and for two, we may not be welcome in Russian airspace at the moment, or may not feel it safe.
Oh, now, but have you heard of any? Do you have any friends or anybody that's had weird experiences in that area?
No, I really haven't. And I don't know for sure. I mean, there's so many theories back and forth on the Bermuda Triangle. I've flown out to Bermuda quite a few times and never anything weird.
Okay. But you understand why everybody's like super interested in that, right? That's the big, thing that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to try to see if this works. And I'm going to see if sharing the screen works, because it didn't used to work, but we'll see, because it's not saving how I want.
But anyway, this was one of our local field outings down near Conifer. And I was just told to take a picture down to the south. I didn't see anything, but I took a picture. And the orbs generally show up better with the flash. And there we go. That's the biggest orb I've ever seen.
You can see it. I'm trying to point with my pointer, but I don't think you can see me pointing at it. But you can see there's actually a couple orbs.
Yeah, there's another one on the left side that's lower, and then there's
you can
see a little bit off to the right, and it's kind of the limits of resolution. It's hard to tell, but there's possibly some humanoid faces, like about 3/4 of the way to the left, between a couple of those. I think those are milkweed. It's hard to tell, but that's definitely a very huge orb. And I don't know why the real brightness on the left side, because there was nothing right there to be reflecting off of.
I absolutely see one of the humanoid faces.
Ah.
very clearly. Very Native American
Oh, we get them show up at our things a
feature.
lot too. We'll have Native American elders in full dress regalia in the higher dimension that just come in to commune with us. And
Wow, that is giving me the chills. That is so clear to me. Interesting. Well, there you go. There's right. Everybody's like, wow, wow, wow. Yeah.
now I've got a friend who claims to be part of the Andromeda Council, and he checked in on this picture, and they told him that it was Ozzy. It's a much longer, harder to pronounce name, but he says Ozzy's fine. Uh, it's an Arcturian fifth dimensional energy form beyond needing a physical body entity, and a couple of his helpers that have been kind of working with me, I guess, kind of following me and nudging me a little over the years, kind of like a spirit guide, I guess. So apparently, if that story's true, then it's a higher dimensional being that's been working with me and trying to, put the foot in the middle of my back and says, "Get that book finished."
There you go. Yep. It often takes that little extra kick, shove in
Yep.
the back to get those books done.
And when I did finally get the book finished, Tasheena said, "We've been waiting for you to get this done."
Oh. Are they wanting you to dig in deeper and bring out another more?
Yeah, I've got I'm this crazy 2 week on, 2 week off schedule where you work 14 days straight to exhaustion. I really haven't managed to get into the. I got to finish up the second edition on the first book, some updates, and then get it into Kindle format. And people are asking for audio format too. I may try that. But then I've got to start on the book too. I've also got a science fiction book that I started 30 or 40 years ago that I'd kind of like to get back in and work on. But trouble is, most of what I had as fiction back then is already fact. It was more prescient than anything. Things like computer banking, where you don't keep a check register anymore. You just work off the current balance and stuff. I had all that in my book like 40 years ago.
Well, we need to get you really retired, and so you can concentrate on bringing and ushering in this full connection with our ET family.
Most of my friends who've retired said they've never been busier than after they retired.
All right, so that's true story there. Retiring is not relaxing, is it? All right. Jane asks, first of all, hi, Jane, and welcome everyone who has popped in. If you have any questions, please throw them in, and I will star them, put them in order here. And welcome to our guest, Don Daniels. Hi, all. Who is really in charge of this planet, us or them?
It's our planet. We're given a large amount of free reign, but I don't think they'll let us destroy it. They have already shut down nuclear missiles in the silos, basically telling us that you're not going to be allowed to play that game. Robert Salas, who was at our disclosure project thing back in 2001, May 9th, 2001, and I've known him. He came to my house one time when he was coming through the area. He was in the silos up in Malmstrom Air Force Base in, I think it's North Dakota. And he got a call from the topside security guards that there were lights maneuvering in the sky around the silos, and his men were, standing guard. And so Robert ran and grabbed his commanding officer, who was taking a nap on the cot. By the time they got back, the missiles were one after another just going to a no launch status. And the guards up topside said it's shooting a pencil thin I think it was green light beam at the top of each silo and just shut them down. And they didn't do any damage. They brought them back up later, but we heard that the same thing happened over in Russia at about the same time.
I was just
And
talking about
it was
Russia.
shortly after that that detente got fired up. It's like, okay, maybe we won't be able to play that game, so maybe we better talk to each other and figure out how to get along. You know, what a concept.
And speaking of Russia, do you think they're watching them closely right now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're watching and recording our history. I think when we have open contact, we'll be able to go back and through their data banks and see the true history of various events, have a better understanding of what really happened.
That'll be interesting to see from their point of view. I can only
Yeah.
imagine. I mean, I do watch Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
I hear what Star Trek people talk about, a lower life form planets and stuff. I mean, they're respectful and everything, but I'm just saying, you know.
Well, the new Star Trek Picard, we've been watching it on the,
Yeah.
I think it's Paramount Prime or whatever.
Well, that one is interesting, isn't it?
It's got some real parallels to the current dystopian trends.
Yes. Yes, it does. I thought they did a really good job with that. Okay. All right. Jane says, thank you. That gives me hope. Okay. Kevin, loving vibrations. Hi, Kevin. I saw a big orb over Lake Erie. It looked like a giant Chinese lantern. It was bright orange orb that looked like an orb of flames. It was pretty cool. Wow. So very interesting.
So that was different than the ones that appear on the photos. It was, you saw that with your naked eye?
I'm
It may take a
assuming.
moment for them to type.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It could
Really
have been
cool.
a craft that was plasma glow. There have been some photos of some that were a bright orange plasma glow around the craft.
But that's what I'm saying. So that what we're seeing is this orb, but in reality, there's there's a craft inside that.
It could be highly charged, creating a plasma around it.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Bonds wants to know, do you have to follow Dr. Greer's protocol?
There's a number of different protocols. Native Americans have some. Ricardo Gonzalez, who's going to be down in Crestone in August. You can look that up on Starworks USA. That's going to be a really neat weekend. Unfortunately, I'm working that weekend, but
Oh,
yeah, I know. But Ricardo is amazing. He's a magnet. He's had contacts, and he's I think they call him an antenna. He will just get an automatic writing message, and it will say at 9:05 p.m. near Mount Shasta, craft will come in, and they'll be out there waiting, and sure enough, right on time.
wow.
It's pretty amazing. He's had contacts with visible beings and stuff out in the field, and other people have witnessed it, journalists and stuff. So that would be a really, really good program if anybody in the area is interested, down in Crestone in August.
Wow.
I think it's like 17th, cool. 18th, 19th, something like that weekend.
And again, one more time, what was that called?
Starworks USA, Paula Harris is the person who's putting the thing together.
All right. Kevin says, yes, he saw it with his own eye, and it wasn't moving in any direction. It was there, like it wasn't moving.
Cool.
That is really cool. All right. A lot of people are sharing their stuff. Okay, we already did this one. Okay.
Now, maybe we should hit a couple of the books that I didn't get to last time.
Yes. Okay.
Hank Wesselman is the author who wrote Spirit Walker, Medicine Maker, and I forget what the third one is. It's a series. And he went into these shamanic trances and started seeing the world through the eyes of what turned out to be a descendant of his, like hundreds of years in the future. And it was back to more of a stone and wood age. Sea levels had risen and wiped out most of the port cities, and the ability to extract materials and stuff had kind of gone. The easily available metals and stuff were no longer available. And so they'd gone back to a more primitive, but still quite advanced and comfortable civilization. And eventually, this ancestor of his became aware of him and was able to come into his body and see our world through his eyes. He was a kind of a historian in the future, and for him to be able to come back and see our world was quite fascinating. Those books were really interesting.
What?
And then Craig Campobasso wrote a series, I Am Theron, Thyon, and he tells me in the book, he says,
it's TH.
I think it's Thyon.
Okay, THY. Okay, let me go ahead and fix that real quick.
He tells you to read the glossary first, so that as you're going through the book, you'll understand the terms they're using. And so I started reading the glossary, and flashbulbs were just going off in my head, like, I've been there. I was part of this, you know.
Oh.
And I tell you what, that just, and then they get into the events of the early history of our galaxy, and it's like, man, I was there. That book just triggered a whole lot in me. So if people are interested in that, check out those series. Those are really good.
Okay, and then also, since we're on the books, don't forget to check out Don's book, Evolution Through Contact. And I have that right here. This is what you'll be getting. It's on Amazon. That's the easiest and quickest way I feel like to capture.
Yeah, and I'm not very good about self-promotion. I feel funny about it, but you can promote it.
Yes, and I will, and I do.
You enjoyed it. I talked to you about it. You really enjoyed the book, so that's
yes, fun. Yes. And I've received really good feedback from others who have enjoyed it too.
Yeah. Have I ever drove one of the ET Friends ships? Not consciously. It's been a dream to, you know, be invited aboard and learn how to fly the thing, and maybe share flying lessons with them, teach them to fly our airplane. That was an early dream of mine.
Oh, wow.
So far hasn't happened. At one of the conferences, we did a big field outing. We had like 100 people in the field, and then Ukwala, who's he's a Havasupai wisdom keeper, was there. He said we had probably as many higher dimensional beings in the field with us as we had people. Had a whole line of Native Americans that dropped in to commune with us and enjoy the energy. One person told me they were out in space in consciousness and encountered a dragon, and it was a very cool dragon. And the next morning, somebody told me that in there, after they got back to the hotel and went to sleep, they popped up to the ship, and there was a big meeting going on in one of the ships in orbit around the Earth. And I said, "Oh, cool. I wonder if I was there." And she says, "Oh, yeah, you were leading it." And I'm going, I wish I could remember.
Right? I want to remember some of this stuff while you're the experiences. Do you think there's purpose behind not remembering?
Yeah, it may be too much too soon, or it may be just that they're saving it for the optimal time. You know, maybe if I talked about it too much, I'd be in jeopardy with the job again. Who knows? I have a hard time keeping any of those kind of secrets. So, and I just got lectured by my chief pilot again recently to stop talking about the UFO stuff. And of
Oh,
course, after he does that, then everybody's asking me.
yeah.
Whatever. But,
Free speech.
yeah,
Okay, so Bonds is asking, what do you know about the Alaskan Dark Pyramid, Alaskan Triangle?
not an awful lot. Uh, it's not really my specialty. Uh, I I did. We had one gal who was researching the Bosnian pyramids, and they had some very fascinating stuff there. They were taking photos that were showing energy uh, coming off of those pyramids, and they were recording some sounds associated. So those were quite fascinating. They're actually bigger than the Egyptian pyramids. They just looked like mountains, except they were a little too square on the sides. And they started
Oh,
excavating and found that it was actually huge pyramids in Bosnia.
wow. All right. Very cool. Now, I thought we'd look at this one real quick, just because I feel like there might be quite a few people watching that feel the same way as Ellen here. And Ellen is saying, don't take this disrespectful. I try to have an open mind, but am I the only one that has hard time believing the ET stuff?
No, a lot of that has to do with your culture and upbringing. Uh, if well, there was one televangelist who told his flock that ETs and UFOs were agents of the devil, and anybody who even saw one was in league with the devil. And furthermore, it was a good Christian's duty to stone that person to death. So, do you think anybody in his congregation is going to talk
Right.
about it or even see it? They're going to kind of like look the other way or just mentally block it out. So, it kind of depends on your upbringing. Carl Jung rather famously made the statement that if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't have seen it. He was referring to the filter in the brain that, I mean, if say you're driving down the road, there's fence posts and signs and blades of grass and pop cans and cars and everything going by. If you were fully consciously aware of every blade of grass, your mind would be in overload and you'd miss that fuel truck that just pulled out in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So the brain filters what it thinks is important. And what Carl Jung was actually talking about was UFOs. He was quite interested. And he said that if he didn't believe they were possible, it would have been filtered out and he would have never seen it.
Wow. I love this. I love that.
I'm thinking we're already almost an hour into this. Uh, why don't I talk about the White Eagle Dome, the invisibility, how they apparently cloak, and then let's get into our experiment, a remote
Okay.
viewing
We
experiment
do
with
have
everybody.
lots more questions too, but yes, let's do that. Well, if we have time, we're going to be back, you guys. We are trying to do this once a month, so we will be back. So
Okay, so I was down in Crestone on one of the outings, and we were going out south of the uh, south of town to an open field and doing our work, and we would kind of erect a mental dome of protection around us, but also it seemed like we'd have thunderstorms coming over and they would kind of split, go around us and reform, and we'd have a clear hole in the sky directly above us. It's like our energy was burning a hole through the clouds.
Mhm.
And but one night we were seeing well, the Indians call them cheap fireworks. It's like little sprites of energy popping up out of the ground, 12 to 18 inches tall, and they would we were seeing them off in the distance around us, and you could almost make out a dome over us, like kind of like the old King Dome in Chicago, in Seattle before they took it down, the
Mhm.
big dome roof. And back at the White Eagle Lodge, on the way into Crestone where we were staying. The cook at the restaurant had gone out for a cigarette break late in the evening. He was watching the thunderstorm. And down to the south was the Great Sand Dunes, but in the across the road and like a half mile away, there was a farmhouse and a barn and some trees, and they blocked the view of about 2/3 of the sand dunes. You can see a little here and a little more over on the left side, but this barn and trees and stuff blocked the view of most of the sand dunes. Well, he steps out there, and in the lightning and stuff, he can see the entire sand dunes, and that barn and trees and farmhouse were gone. And it freaked him out.
Yeah.
The next day, he was not there for breakfast, and we're all going, what happened to the cook? And finally, he came in for a late lunch, and he's serving us, and somebody asked him what happened, and he told them. And he'd gone into the hospital in Salida to talk to the doctors because he thought he was losing his mind. Oh, no, that makes perfect sense to us. Basically, what they can do is either bend the light waves around so that you see what's behind them, or they phase shift themselves up to a higher frequency, a higher vibrational level. It's like we can see red through blue, through indigo, the rainbow.
Okay.
That's our visual spectrum. And I'll get into a little more on that in a moment. But basically, if they shift themselves up an octave or two, they're beyond our visual range and they become transparent. And so you can see right through them. Now, I'd like to ask the audience, chime in here. How many of you nowadays, when you see a rainbow, see a little bit of a repeat on either side? So it may go, red to indigo, and then you get a little red and orange again. And on the bottom side, you may see a little bit of indigo and blue, violet blue. You get a little bit of the next octave on either side of it. How many of you are able to see that nowadays? Waiting for people to pop up there, but that's basically an indication that your consciousness is expanding. And as you expand your consciousness, you can also expand your visual range a little bit into the infrared and the ultraviolet.
Wow.
So,
I was wondering.
I think so.
I love that. I love that because I just thought, oh, wow, these are just really powerful rainbows out here in Colorado, in New Mexico.
They are.
But I didn't know that it had to do with that. I just thought everybody was seeing that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway.
Yes, everybody's like, yeah. Yeah.
Years ago at a mystical convocation, we were doing an experiment, and we'd get 2 people at a time into the sanctum of the temple, and the object was to project unconditional love to the other person. And the guy that came down at the same time as me was Dean. He was kind of crotchety and liked to poke fun at me, and I'm thinking, oh God, this would have been easier with somebody else. And I thought, wait a minute. Good one, Cosmic. You gave me an extra challenge here. so I settle into that silence between the breaths, the oneness, that we're all awake and aware and conscious in the same way, sparked by the same seed of consciousness from the same creator. And that Dean and I are much more alike than different. And maybe what he does to annoy me is to try and force me to see something about myself that I need to change. And so I got into that real state of conscious oneness and was projecting unconditional love. And then I didn't notice a whole lot except that I was in a pretty good state of bliss. And when the experiment ended for us, some of the people in the audience said, Don, the most amazing thing happened. First, this purple haze formed around me, and then it went out and encircled Dean. And then they said, and then you became transparent. We could see through you.
Wow.
Whoa. Now, I haven't been able to repeat that, but if you can raise your consciousness enough, you can kind of move into the next octave of vibratory frequency. You can become transparent to those around you.
Okay.
Sorry, blowing up bombs here.
All right. Wow. So a lot of people are talking about the rainbows and
Yeah.
saying yes. Have you been able to photograph this? If you see it, can you photograph? Is it caught in photographs?
That's a good thing to try. The digital cameras have a little wider spectrum than our visual eyes, and especially if you had some real special photographic equipment that deliberately went out a fair ways beyond, you might be able to see it there. Somebody says
So
practicing my invisibility.
Bonds is right in this conversation with you. And I perceive time. Our third time is going faster than before and having almost no meaning. So time is moving differently too. Okay. Well,
to some extent, as you get older, time seems to go faster. When you're in grade school, a year seems to take forever. And now it's like, whoa, are we spring again?
Right. True.
And speaking of that, we're 80 degrees up here in Evergreen today. We're supposed to get 16 inches of snow tomorrow. Tomorrow. It's like
we're getting it Saturday. We're getting
is
it Saturday? I think Saturday for us down here.
We get 16 inches on Friday and 3 inches on Saturday is what the forecast is. I don't think that much is going to stick because the ground's so warm. A lot of it's going to melt when it first hits.
Away. Yeah.
But they're worried about tree branches breaking, and my wife's been bringing all the plants in from the deck. She had a regular jungle out there, and now they're all in the living room.
Yeah. So yeah, we're getting we get the cool down tomorrow with the storms, but then the snow comes the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, we're 87 we're 87 here today, just like you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're taking the big drop, and then we're getting the snow over the weekend into like.
And I took all the snow tires off. It's silly me.
Yeah. And there you have it. Okay, so Bonds was talking 3D. Okay, so yeah.
Colors in general brighter and richer than they used to be. Yeah. And some of it is supplementing the physical sight with the third eye psychic seeing. And I used to walk down the forest roads when we were up camping with my eyes closed, trying to see how far I could go, just on intuition and psychic sight. Never fell off the edge.
Yeah, my friend tried to do that with me on the back of her bike when we were younger. That didn't go over so well.
Oh, that might not work so well.
All right, and we have scars to this day.
Oh,
from that beautiful experiment. So, did you want to go ahead and answer a couple more questions and then move into the thing you want to do, or?
Well, we kind of set it up with the invisibility thing here. Okay. So why don't we go ahead and we'll do a group meditation, and it's really remote viewing, psychometry, telepathy. All of that is really kind of interrelated, and a lot of the same principles go into it also. What we're going to try here is a remote viewing experiment, and Debbie has a target object out of view, and what we're going to do is I'm going to lead you into a meditation, get you into that silence between the breaths, in touch with the cosmic consciousness, and then Debbie is going to telepathically project information about this object, color, texture, material, emotional connections, whatever size. And so we're gonna kind of combine the remote view and the telepathy to give the newbies a little stronger signal. But we're gonna see how well, the audience can do at picking up what this mystery object is.
Yeah. And Don, I'm going to have you pop out all the way because you're really, really blurry, and I don't want it to distract people. And so if you could pop all the way back out and then click on the link to come back in again, and let's see if we can get you cleared up.
Really? I'm plenty clear on my screen.
Thank you, Maija.
So you want me to leave the studio and then come back?
Leave all the way out and then click back on the link to come back in. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
I just feel
Hopefully
like,
I'll see you again in a moment.
oh, you will. Sorry, guys. I just want to, I don't know if you all were seeing it, but it was really blurry on this end. So I just want to make sure we get that right. But yeah, thank you, Maija. That's such a blessing. And here we go. Here he comes back in. Much better.
Huh. I was
There
fine
you
on
are.
mine, but
You're 100% better.
well,
And
thank you. Getting better all the time.
there you go. So, all right.
Okay, so as we do this experiment, if you got a notepad or something,
Oh, it went blurry.
try and stay as much in the flow of consciousness as you can, and just kind of make notes without really becoming fully awake again, if you can. Just impressions. You may get a solid picture of what you're looking at, but in most cases you'll get impressions like a color or a material or something like that, and just write those down. And then when we finish, for the benefit of those who are going to do it on the replay, wait until we finish, and then I'll tell everybody that if they're doing it on the replay and they need a little more time, just pause at that point, and then they can come back in and see what the object is when they're through with the experiment. So it's best if you can sit relatively upright, feet separated, hands on your knees, palms down, just for energy flow. This is the way the Rosicrucians generally do it. And that way you're not short-circuiting the energy with crossed legs or crossed arms. And just focus on your breath. Inhale deeply and slowly, and pause. And exhale deeply and slowly, and pause. Inhale and exhale. I like to feel the air coming in through the top of my head like a dolphin, flowing down through my body like a wave, picking up any impurities, any toxins, physical or mental, and then exhaling them out through the bottom of my feet down into the earth, where they can be alchemically transmuted back into good energy. So inhale and feel that wave go through your body, cleansing as it goes. Exhale the energy out through the bottom of your feet. Imagine roots from your feet deep down into the earth. And now start to notice, in that silence between the breaths, in that pause, there's a moment of deep, profound silence. Go into that silence, and with each breath, expand it a little longer and a little longer. And with practice, maybe not today, but with practice, you'll get to the point where you can stay within that deep, profound silence through the entire breath cycle. And when you're there, you're in touch with the cosmic consciousness, the Akashic records, whatever you want, whatever information you want, you can ask for. and it will be delivered in some way or another. It may be some subtle clue a few days later, but you've set things in motion. But for now, allow your consciousness to go to Debbie, and Debbie is transmitting telepathically impressions about this object, the target of our experiment. And look in front of her and see what you see. Don't try and analyze yet. Just let the impressions flow. Once you try and intellectualize and analyze, that pretty much shuts off the flow. So just be open to impressions at this point and jot down any notes of what comes to you. Regardless of how ridiculous it seems, just write it down. So we might want to start with a color. What color is the first thing that comes to your mind? You may not even know why, but if you get an impression of a color, jot that down. And now, get an impression of the shape. Whatever first comes to mind is usually the best impression. And write that down. And now, the size. How large is it? And write that down. And now the material it's made of. What type of material is it? And write that down. And now, go to a more emotional state and see what emotional attachment this object has for Debbie. What feelings does she have about it? What part does it play in her life? And write that down. Is there some historical event, how did it come into her life? Was there some special event associated with this object? And any other impressions you might get, go ahead and write those down. I see people putting stuff in the comments. We're going to have to tell the people that do this later to turn off the comments for the duration of the experiment.
Hmm.
And now, gently focus back on your breathing and gently come back up to kind of a borderline state of consciousness. Any other notes you might have, write them down. And then go ahead and open your eyes And let's see what people got. Okay. Debbie, you want to go ahead and show them what it was?
All right. I can't wait to see
people
what
were
everybody
on.
got.
People were hot here.
They were. So, yes, so it was a sphere shape. So people were saying crystal ballish. So, yes, and you can see that it's quite large.
Third eye. Huh. Do you use it for connecting?
It is very connecting for me.
Okay, so that third eye is a good impression.
Yeah.
A lot of people got crystal. Dragonfly says totally off. Dragonfly, were you over intellectualizing? Were you trying to figure it out as you went, or were you just letting the impressions flow? Blue toothbrush. Maybe cleansing the brain instead of the teeth.
3x3, yeah. But Melinda, you pretty much you got that.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, always go with that first impression. Marvita says, I gotta circle it first. Yeah. So and I do want to say it's interesting because right on the other side of this is I keep this in front of me all the time, is my blue crystal. So if you guys were tapping in on blue, give yourself a pat on the back. This was sitting in front of me, but this was the one I was focusing on. So.
And we did that another experiment, and somebody tapped in on a black jaguar, and that wasn't the object of our experiment. But then the gal I was doing it with, doing the interview with, she says, "Oh," and she turns around and grabs this black jaguar statue off of her bookcase right behind her. Okay, well, they picked up on that instead of the one we were aiming for.
Exactly.
Yeah, that happens.
Exactly.
So that was not a miss.
Yeah, and it takes practice. Yeah, Craig, that's what you got. You tapped in on my triangle-y, shapy blue that was sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's why this takes practice and intention.
And you can practice this with friends. If you've got some open-minded friends, you can practice back and forth, take turns being the sender or the receiver. And you can even, when you get good, you can have a third party put something in a box where neither of you know what it is and kind of do a double blind experiment.
Yeah, those are all fun things to do.
Those are tougher.
So yes, and this was a gift. So about 500 people got that it was a gift. So you caught that.
Was it from your daughter or granddaughter? Somebody said it was a gift from your daughter or granddaughter.
No. In fact, I don't even remember who. I know it was given to me. I don't remember who it was. Do I put it on top of wood? Yes.
That's where it lives, up on the mantle there.
I just wanted to.
Oh.
So it sits on this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this audience is pretty tuned in. They had a pretty high average here.
Good job, guys.
Very good job.
But this is absolutely this stone makes me feel. It's hard to describe, but so I'm going to try. It makes me feel at home, like I'm home, and really connected into my third eye and crown chakra. But it also makes me feel grounded with them at home. I feel at home in this space, in this, yeah. So,
yeah, somebody said I got the exact color and smooth, but no shape. That's fine. You got several elements of it.
Yeah. So awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I did want to.
People, it's much more of a natural ability than most people realize. It's just culturally suppressed.
Correct. And so we just have to really kind of move into changing some of the old narrative that we're holding on to that keeps us oppressed, and let go and allow yourself to open up.
Yeah.
Earth,
When our kids were young, they were very open-minded and into this kind of stuff. And as soon as they got in school, the other kids kind of shut it down. They shut it down because they wanted to fit in.
Right.
Which is sad.
Yeah. I did want to give a shout out to Earth Sage Katrin. Blessings to you, and thank you for your kind support there. Okay. Christine says, I did so much better than I thought I would.
Yay, Christine.
Yay.
Okay. Well, do we have more questions? How about
we do have
questions from the book? Anybody got questions after reading the book?
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Do you know anything about Valiant Thor?
Oh, yeah. And that was very real. As a matter of fact, I went to the Paranormal Research Forum meeting last night here in Wheat Ridge, and Paula Harris was the presenter, and she was talking about Valiant Thor, and she had some of the pictures. He was at a outdoor gathering, almost like a picnic, but gathering in the backyard of one of the people back there in New Jersey. He and Dawn and the gal, I can't remember her name. Anyway, they were talking to this group of people, and the photographer was taking pictures. There's some, just Google Valiant Thor, you'll find these pictures.
Okay.
And the photographer noticed that he had no fingerprints, and somebody said he had no navel.
Wow.
Which is interesting. He was apparently a created being to come down and try and offer us. I mean, he landed outside of Washington, D.C., but he was picked up by the police, taken in. They took him to the Pentagon. He actually lived in a kind of an apartment in the Pentagon for several months. He visited with Eisenhower. He offered us technologies to clean up our environment, but he, on the condition that they would not be weaponized. And we were just out of World War II, and the military guys wanted to be the biggest, baddest gorilla on the planet, and they wanted technology they could weaponize so they could be dominant. And he wouldn't do that. And that's when apparently the Greys came in and offered technology that they could weaponize in exchange for allowing the abductions and the gathering of the genetic material to try and perpetuate their dying race to create the hybrids. And so unfortunately we went down the path of lesser intention. But,
okay, so that's so interesting. Do you guys want to
Craig
see?
Campobasso did a short video. It's kind of a prequel to a full-length one, try and sell the full-length video on Valiant Thor. Oh, you found one? No, that's not him.
Okay. That's the pictures that came up for him. So let's undo that. Let's see if I can find another one.
I don't think that was him. It was an odd angle on the face, but
they keep showing him over and over again on the.
Yeah, Bonds, that was mentioned last night. The navel was like a star.
Okay, so why do they keep showing the same picture for this person? Oh, okay, so here we go. Maybe it's this
you
one.
See about 30 or 40 people outside in a backyard. with
Oh.
trees in the background.
So, stranger at the Pentagon. Is this?
Yep.
So not him. Okay.
That's him.
All right. So let's do this share. See if this one is the right one. Get it right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the group of them. Is there a way to expand that out full screen?
I was trying to.
Maybe not, but anybody can search it.
Okay, at least we have the right guy, so I can try to do a different one and pull him up stronger. But the Valiant Thor. So if you guys want to look that up, but yeah, I've never. That's the first time for me. Is this another one of him?
Yeah, Eisenhower knew an awful lot. Yeah, that's him on the right. Not sure who that is on the left.
Anyway, it's very interesting. Check that out. Pretty cool. So I'm gonna have to do some research on this. See, every time you come on, I get my mind gets going on more and more. Fun. All right, done. Okay, so I used to watch. Craig has a question here. What happened? What happened in Rendlesham Forest?
Rendlesham Forest. Oh. That was over in England. It was one of our military bases. We didn't admit it at the time, but there were nuclear weapons stored there. This craft came in, landed in the forest, and a team of security people went out to investigate. One of them, and I met him, actually touched the craft, and he got just a wave of consciousness flooding in and a bunch of symbols and stuff. And he's written them down and analyzed them. Larry Warren was one of our witnesses at the Disclosure Project, and unfortunately it turned out later on that he was kind of an imposter. He was piggybacking on other people's information and saying he was there, but he actually was not there. So unfortunately that discredited our group a little bit by having a witness that turned out to not be as reputable as we'd hoped. Unfortunately, one bad apple can spoil the whole barrel when the rest of them can be totally valid. One of the witnesses that I went around Capitol Hill on the day after our press conference with was John Callahan. He was High Lord Mucky Muck in the FAA in charge of accidents and investigations. And he got a call from the Anchorage Air Traffic Control Center. What do we tell the people about the UFO? And he says, what? There had been a Japanese Airlines freighter coming across. I think he was going from Europe to Japan. And he was up north of Fairbanks, and he spotted this huge spherical craft several times as large as his 747. And he's radioing to the control center what he's seen. And it was so big that it was showing up on his weather radar, which is not designed necessarily for picking up small airplane reflections. It's designed to pick up weather. But it was creating such a strong echo. He'd say it's at my 11 o'clock 5 miles, because he could measure the distance on the radar. And Anchorage Center contacted the military base up in Fairbanks, and they got their military radar, which has not only side to side but up and down, so they have height finder. They can calculate the altitude at the same time as the angle, and they were seeing it. And so they're talking to the Anchorage controller, said it just jumped to his 1 o'clock 5 miles. At the same time, the pilot's saying it just jumped to my 1 o'clock 5 miles. They had airborne visual, airborne radar, ground radar, all corroborating the same event. And this thing followed him for like 20 or 30 minutes. But when the captain got to Japan, they pulled him off, and they actually pulled him off flight duty. They thought he was crazy. But John got the radar, all the information from the controller tapes and the radar tapes, had him send them down to him in D.C. I think it was actually in Atlantic City where they had their technical center, and he replayed them and synchronized the audio and the radar. And he had one of these newfangled camcorders, the Super 8 movie thing on a big tripod when they were very new. And he's recording this whole playback and pointing out what's going on and everything. So he looked that over, and he eventually wound up, I think he went to Japan, or maybe it was Al Haynes went to Japan and actually testified for the pilot that, hey, this was real. He's okay. He's not crazy, and got him his job back. But
Wow.
Al Haynes came into work the next day, and the boss says, "You're doing a briefing in the round room in 15 minutes." Oh, who's there? Well, FBI, CIA, NSA, some people we don't know who they are, but you're briefing them all. Some of Reagan's science advisors, science council. And so he brings stuff down there, and he does the whole dog and pony show with the material, and some of the scientists were very interested in the raw data from the radar, so they could calculate speeds and how this thing moved and stuff. And John stepped out in the hall and was talking to somebody, and one of the spooks swore everybody in the room to secrecy. Says, this event never happened, this evidence doesn't exist, and you'll never talk about it. John goes, he wasn't in the room, and he didn't swear. He also didn't, and they collected all the evidence and took it with them. He didn't tell them they had the copies. He had the originals up in his office.
Wow.
And he just kind of put those aside, and when he retired, they boxed up his office and took it home, and then he shared it with the Disclosure Project. So we had all the raw data. I've got a cassette tape duplicate of the controller tapes with the pilot and air traffic controllers. Got a copy of that from him.
I have a question here, Don. Do you think if when this all started happening and all these connections and awareness was happening, if the government didn't fight so hard to continue to cover up and just allow it to play out naturally, we would be a totally different world now.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, we talked about it last time. The day the Earth stood still was actually put out by the good guys at the State Department to get us ready for the disclosure that we had visitors. That was supposed to happen back in the 50s.
I just think it would be it would have been so nice to just allow it to play out naturally. And now we have to.
But see, there was profit to be made from the technologies and from preventing us from getting off fossil fuels, and those greedy interests won, unfortunately.
Yeah. Craig is saying in those days, the USAF, nobody talked about this stuff. They would interrogate and threaten you imprisonment, and DD, maybe Leavenworth too.
I don't know what DD means. But,
detainment.
Yeah, one of our witnesses, he came to one of the CSETI outings down in Crestone, and towards the end of the week, he says, okay, I want to give you my story. He'd been in one of the first nuclear bomber wings in the B-57 or something, one of those earlier jet bombers. And when they got nukes, almost everybody in the squadron had close pacing incidents where it was generally a cigar-shaped wingless craft would pull in alongside, and he had one happen to him where this thing is pacing him, and he'd pull up, it'd match him, whatever he was doing. And then it'd jump to the other side and it'd do the same thing over there. He didn't feel threatened. He felt they were just checking it out, because they were carrying nuclear weapons. And virtually everybody in the squadron had similar incidents. But if you talked about it, you got trashed, you got psych eval. He said there was like a 80-page form you were supposed to fill out. The first page or two was what happened. The rest was deep psychological profile on you and your family and everybody you know. And then after that was all over, you'd get shipped to Shimia or Point Barrow or some way out of the way place. They break up the crew and send them to different places so they couldn't talk about it. And they've kept it. He said they tried to get the group together at their big reunion to record their testimony of what happened, and everybody was still afraid, even though they were long retired and stuff. Nobody wanted to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just so unfortunate. I just feel like, it could have gone so differently, but here we are. So he is dishonorably discharged. Yes. Now that I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, and Craig says you definitely didn't tell the doctor either, the USAF doctor.
Oh, did he have an experience too?
I don't know. He maybe he just has studied this as well.
So Craig, let us know. Have you had an experience of your own? And were you in the Air Force? I was civilian all the way. I'm not quite sure what Melinda's getting at there. The Air Force for a while was trying to shoot them down so they could reverse engineer the technology.
Oh,
that's real friendly of us, you know.
Is that why they were trying to shoot down a? I mean, that just is like
they didn't shoot back.
No, but they wouldn't. It would be like toy guns versus real guns. You know, what I mean? It would be ridiculous. All right. So, no.
Has our private military or military developed the ET technology with similar flying objects? A lot of evidence they have. That there's stories about even Air Force and Navy programs, and the Navy program is probably more ethical than the Air Force program. They called it Solar Warden. They were patrolling our solar system and even beyond with anti-gravity craft.
Mm-hmm. So he was in the Air Force, but nothing he didn't have any personal or whatever. He didn't see anything.
But he kind of got that drift.
I just saw drunk people. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
One of my co-pilots told me he was in a A-10 squadron, and they had a secret base out in the desert somewhere. And you really couldn't see it except with night vision glasses at night. And you'd land and roll into the hillside, and then the doors would close up again. But he said when they got the fifth generation night vision, the color night vision, all of a sudden they were seeing all kinds of weird stuff in the sky, and stuff would come at them and make 90-degree turns and stuff. And so the regulations say you're supposed to file a report on anything like that, service, CIRVIS report, for anything that's potentially a threat to our airspace or our country. You know, like if we're flying over the ocean and we see a whole fleet of Russian bombers headed towards the U.S., we're supposed to radio it in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they were filling out these reports on these strange things they were seeing in their new night vision, and pretty quick, a couple of guys in gray suits showed up and didn't say who they were or anything, but gave them a briefing and said, "Okay, guys, we don't report these. Just shut up." Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Do they have ETs in captivity now? The government?
I don't know about exactly right now. They have at times. Tashina was basically in captivity for a while. But listen to my program on the radio. It was linked in the last program, but blogtalkradio.com/Sierra-Neblina, and look for my program with Clifford Stone. Probably if you just go to blogtalkradio.com and type in Clifford Stone, you'll find it. And he was an interfacer for the military. He was very empathic, and they would use him to communicate with any ETs that were alive. And he helped one escape, actually, that was captive, and he got in a lot of trouble for it. But very interesting story. He passed away last year. I got a really good interview with him a year or two before he passed away.
Oh, wow. Wow. So here's that link, guys, if you want to listen to some of that. And if you want to know more about Don Daniel's story, please pick this book up. And this is his book, Don Daniel's Evolution Through Contact. I know, so compassionate.
Have the Russians also developed these technologies? Yeah, probably. The Germans, back during World War II, were working on them.
Mm-hmm.
They had their, what did they call them? I'll think if I can see them. But they had anti-gravity craft they were working on back in World War II. And before that, the Vril Society was apparently channeling information from another world on how to build anti-gravity craft, and they built some. And Maria Orlik was the head of that group. And then when the war came, they were trying to force her to develop it for the military, which she had real problems with. But she is the spitting image of Simjaze, who was the primary Pleiadian contact with Billy Myers.
Oh, wow.
So there's some speculation she may have been one and the same. Whether she was actually Pleiadian or she was just telling him she was, we don't know. But you look at the two of them together and they're total doppelgangers.
Oh, wow. Again, my mind is expanding. All right. So one more question, and then we're going to let Don go until next month. And so compile your questions for next time we're on. How about ships that may have crashed? Do we have any crash ships?
Oh, yeah.
We have. Okay.
Well, the ones from Roswell, there were at least two that crashed at Roswell, and they were brought down. They were flying a regular route over the Trinity site, the nuclear test area. And scientists discovered when they were hovering over the base that every time the radar swept over them, they'd wobble a little. And so they built this circularly polarized radar that could get kind of past their shielding rather than the linear polarization that was normal. And as these craft came by, they popped the radar up and cranked it up, and two of them collided and went down. And a couple of the ETs survived, one only a day or two. Another one lived about a year. And a friend of mine who worked at Rocky Flats was dying of pancreatic cancer, too much radiation over the years. The nurse attendant that was with him, he went to a SSE meeting up in Boulder, a bunch of out-of-the-box scientists, and he was afraid it would weird her out. She says, "Oh, no, my mom was the nurse who took care of that ET that survived the Roswell crash." And I'm going, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I love divine connections.
But then they packed that stuff up and sent it off to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And Barry Goldwater was out visiting the base, and he asked to see the Blue Room. And the general went apoplectic and said, "Don't ever ask about that again. I can't even see the Blue Room. Just don't even ask." Okay. So yeah, they stored some of it there, I guess.
So did she talk about the health of the ET or any?
Yeah, they didn't know how to, what food, what medicines, They were kind of shooting in the dark because the physiology was so different. But they managed to keep it going for about a year. Now, if Clifford Stone had been able to communicate, or if they'd had somebody similarly empathic, they might have been able to get more information to help. But
yeah, I wonder if they must have tried that.
They might have.
It would make sense to me. Of course, I'm here now. It would make sense that they would do that, but who knows? But anyways, thank you so much, Dawn, for
you're welcome.
sharing your wealth of experience and information with us to bring us all current to really what's been going on for many years, and we just think it's just starting. not we have. There's a lot of the family here that
since the 40s at least
on board since the beginning.
And actually, part of what really triggered the huge increase in activity was the atomic bomb. When they started blowing those off, that's when the kids got a hold of a box of hand grenades, and we had to come in and kind of keep them from blowing themselves up.
Okay, that's what happened.
Yeah, so we're like a bunch of adolescents with hand grenades. So.
Right, they're like, oh boy.
Yeah. So next time, let's plan on doing a creative visualization experiment.
Okay.
And meditation,
experience,
and go through the Rosicrucian techniques for creative manifestation.
That'll be awesome. So be prepared for that next time, guys. And also, Kintron, I just wanted to say real quick, because I feel Kintron has a lot of information.
Yes, Bond says read the day after Roswell, Colonel Corso. Paula Harris was very close with Colonel Corso and worked with him over in Italy as well as over here, and wrote a lot of the information about his experiences. Since the government can't technically keep secrets, what they did was they put the Roswell materials out to various corporations, and the corporations can keep corporate secrets. And so they reverse engineered a lot of the stuff, fiber optics, integrated circuits, lasers, Velcro. A bunch of that stuff came from the craft reverse engineered.
Wow. All right. Thank you again, Maija, for your support. That is just really appreciated. And Dawn, thank you again for all that you give us. And so I do want to give a quick shout out before we hang up here. If y'all live in Colorado Springs, shoot me an email, because Dawn does want to set up a field event on site. So we do want to kind of figure that out. So if you live in this area and want to be a part of a field, what do you call it? A field
research outing, or
field research outing.
Go out, meditate under the stars, project our consciousness, see, invite them to come visit, see what happens.
Okay, so if you're interested in this, shoot me an email, and I'll store them all up. So when we do find a date and time to make this happen, and it won't be Saturday because it'll be snowing. We'll make this happen.
And I'll shoot her a copy of my schedule for the next couple of months, so she'll know when I'm in town.
Perfect. And until next time, take care of yourselves and keep your eyes on the sky. Right?
And practice that remote viewing. You guys were really good.
Yeah, practice that. That's beautiful. Love and light to you all. Blessings.
Okay, goodbye.